haven't got cable TV, but I do hear and I do see the YouTube clips that, Fox, which of course is one of the major powers in the media world, is now getting onto it, and which is a great start. But here in Australia, I tell you, it is radio silence. We have a guy here who's among sort of the small community of people who are interested. We've got Andrew Bolton, we've got Tim Blair. We have a few guys who are excellent journalists and who are writing stuff. But still, the prevailing wind is that there is a consensus. There is, life goes on as per before. There is no change. Copenhagen, okay, was disappointing, but we'll get around that. Not the fact that Copenhagen was perhaps founded on a spurious, hypothesis in the first place.
Exactly, and there's so much to talk about there. But if we zoom out a little bit more, then and talk about the big picture, that what do you see that this is all about? Then in the big picture, is it about media sponsoring this point of view because there's other larger corporations here that have a huge monetary interest in pushing this particular point of view? We can go into cap and trade, we can go into other areas as well. Or what do you see the main reason for this being, James?
Well, there's different stages to this whole process, and it goes back all the way to this is phenomenon, like in Gulliver's Travels. Jonathan Swift said, the scientists spend their days trying to extract light from cucumbers. This phenomenon where science can get carried away with itself, and in this case, the politics has just actually even ripped it from the science and made its own bandwagon out of it, is something that has been throughout history. Because Jonathan Swift noted this 200 years ago, and this is even before where we had mass media to even make a propaganda message even stronger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a very old phenomenon. It's happened for thousands of years, and it'll happen in the future. There's a bandwagon that's occurred, and what can you say is, well, what started the bandwagon? Well, I hinted in my movie that it was largely due to Maggie Thatcher, the ex-Prime Minister of Great Britain, also known as the Iron Maiden. And the continuation of it, though, has to be in the days where the money is. They say follow the money and all that. But it is. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry behind it. And if you say, what do you mean multi-billion? Well, General Motors have placed their portfolio towards the whole energy trading market coming in, like it has in California, and hence one of the major factors that California is pretty much bankrupt. And a lot of huge industries have to think, where is the world going? And General Motors happens to be one of those players that has positioned itself in it. And if they don't get, they're making the turbines and all, if they don't get the contracts, they can lose big money. But they're just part of the bandwagon. And of course, they got massive political lobbies. And they're going to be saying to the politicians, well, we're not sure about it, but, we're not sure about the science, but this is what the sort of consensus we are told. You can cherry pick what you want to see. And they say, well, the consensus is, because we've been told there is a consensus, is that it's happening. And also, by the way, we have massive amount of jobs linked and money linked. So that's a whole bandwagon. So if you suddenly say, if someone came out, let's say the Lins and Choi paper, which was discussing, they thought they had come to the final, proof there had no global warming. Well, there was controversy. So let's say it wasn't proof as yet. But let's say some guy came out and said, look, I can prove there is no global warming. Well, that would be chaos. That would be a complete wind down of policy that has been set in place for the last 20 years. Would be a big, bad deal. So there's a large, bad deal. But what started it off, I guess, it would be Margaret Thatcher, and it was purely an energy problem on her part. So, and she must be, kicking herself or smiling wryly, or I don't know which way you'd be at that point in your life, but she must be thinking, oh my God, what have I set in motion? Have I unleashed Pandora's box here? Because the issue was perhaps started by her, and I can discuss, that issue, why she did it, but then was picked up by the extreme environmentalists. As I say, it's like a Faustian pact. The two sides have decided to get together, and they realized it was a common goal, and so they joined each other. And the environmentalists picked up on it, and environmentalists are absolutely awesome at propaganda, at getting their voice heard, and are quite convincing. So they're quite a strong lobby. And once public opinion goes, I mean, I think most people I've talked to, they're like, I don't know, I'm told there's global warming, and there probably is, and we all know that pollution is bad, and cars give out CO2, therefore it must be pollution. So it makes sense. It could make sense, but a lot of people are somewhat skeptical, I think, and even, most people I've talked to, they would quite believe that it's a load of rubbish if they were shown to them that is the case. They would believe it, but they generally say, yeah, it's probably true, it's probably a problem, and our politicians say it is, so we'll go along with it. So if you have a strong lobby group telling you it is the case, if people are now generally convinced that it is, then the politicians sit where the votes are. The politicians will also go along if they think that's what people want to hear, and that they want to have solar panels on their roofs, which everyone I know wants to have subsidized solar panels on their roofs, then, which is just absolute waste of funding and money, but it's just votes, then the politicians are going to go along the bandwagon. So you just create this energy, you create this bubble, which has been going on for a long time, and hopefully we'll be able to contract the bubble, softly as people sort of gradually change and don't implement a massive emissions trading beyond what they already have, like in Europe, and then we could perhaps move on to the next world scare, the next millennium bug.
So this is another Y2K scenario we're looking at here, pretty much. Then, is that what you're saying?
Well, I think there is. I think we all, as my wife says, we love a bit of drama, and we all love a bit of excitement in our lives. And if there is this big fear that the aliens are going to come and get us, or all the computers are going to suddenly stop and the planes are going to fall out of the sky in terms of the Y2K, or that's kind of exciting and makes news, it sells newspapers, and so creates a phenomenon. And people like to have that. It's like going to a horror movie, but no one ever really believed that planes are going to fall out of the sky or anything like that, or the 2012 thing that perhaps, what is it, I haven't really looked into what I might do is in one of my next movies, whether the poles are going to switch and therefore all the climate, weather systems are going to go chaotic and all that sort of carry on. Well, no one really believes it'll happen, but it's kind of exciting to hear about, so that's part of it, I think. Yeah.
Well, what can you say in terms of, if we look at the politics a little bit more, it seems to me that the political left as well has kind of teamed up here in this situation with the green movements around the world as well. We were in Copenhagen, and we saw in the parades, in the marches there, we saw red banners, socialist banners everywhere, and it seems that the politics has in some way now been connected into the whole question of climate change as well. Is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah, I mean, you did a very good presentation there, and I did watch your videos. And yeah, because it's kind of strange actually. It was nothing. There was no exposure apart from one or two, midnight or 11 o'clock at night interviews with some pro CO2 people. We had nothing about Copenhagen here in Australia, I have to say. In my feeling is. So it was kind of interesting to see your video there, you being down on the streets and asking just general questions to the guys who are having a good party. I've done all that stuff myself. I was running around the streets wearing all the fancy gear, blowing whistles against the criminal justice bill. It was fun, And you get the kids and you say, so have you heard of ClimateGate? It was one of your big questions, I remember, and he was like, what, ClimateGate? I mean, only one or two ever heard of it. But I mean, it in some ways, I totally agree. You're making a very interesting point, which is what are you actually here for? You come all the way to Copenhagen, and do you actually know why you're here? Which is a very good point. On the other hand, these guys are just, a lot of them are there for fun. I mean, that sort of thing happens, I guess. But coming back, to your real point, which is the politicization. Well, I mean, I haven't looked in depth, I'll say that, but the impression I've got, and it makes sense to me, is that once the wall came down, I've been in Berlin before and after the wall came down, which is pretty awesome. And funnily enough, the wall is still a major feature of the city. It is a city of two halves. It is Ost und West. There is East and West, and they're very different feeling. And the people in the East have something called Ostalgie, which is, like nostalgia, or Ostalgie, which is the East nostalgia of the good old halcyon days of communism. Well, we had this big phenomenon in the world, which is, sort of the right and left of politics exemplified further by East and West. Well, that all disappeared. And so all the people who were perhaps believing that communism is a great idea or not a great idea, well, the left side of politics has something to hold on to. There was